Hello, everybody. Welcome back once again, to the wonderful TPM podcast, where it's been less than a month, so we're making good progress from the last one. I think we've actually done it weekly this time, like we said. And of course, I'm joined by good old Tommy Bowyer, or Bowyer Stan, as he's called on Discord.
Hello, yeah, he used my Discord name. He's not supposed to do that. I'll talk to him after the podcast has ended. Yes, it's actually a weekly podcast again after Matthew made all those promises in the new year and then obviously, as he usually does, failed to keep any of those promises.
Could be worse.
We finally managed one, which was a weekly upload. We're not saying we're going to do a weekly one next week. However, we've done one weekly one this week, so we should all be grateful about that.
Yeah, be grateful. At least we're sticking to our schedule.
Yes, well, I wouldn't call it a schedule. It's not like we have this plan. It's not like we have this plan. Matthew's not that organised to have like a planned date of when the podcasts are happening. No, no need for
anyway,
that.
what's the first? So, what we talking about today then, Tommy?
Well, of course, I thought we'd talk about the Labour Party, which we haven't talked about actually in a tiny, not really fully as much. And of course, this is about the new Labour leadership team. So, of course, Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell and Diane Abbott, all the lovable losers of the Labour Party, were all kicked out after their failure at last year's general election. And Keir Starmer came in with a new dynamic vision for the Labour Party and for Britain more generally. And a couple of months into his leadership, he took over in April. We're going to just evaluate whether he's actually improving Labour's fortunes or whether he's just condemned to defeat, just much like Jeremy Corbyn was. So, Matthew, what is your personal opinion on Starmer at the moment?
It's the same as it was last week. Boring and flip-flop.
Yes. Yes, that's one of the things I've really noticed. The flip-flopping nature in which Starmer is showing in recent weeks. Now, when the Black Lives Matter protests and movement was all happening, when it was at its height, Starmer came out in support of it, and they took a photo of him kneeling for George Floyd's funeral and all of that. Because as Labour leader, you appeal to left-wing people, and left-wing people generally supported the protest. So Starmer had to be seen to kind of galvanise support around him. However, a couple of weeks after that, he started saying that the protests were getting out of hand and he didn't support the Black Lives Matter movement and was upset with what it has become. However, a couple of days ago, he's now decided that Labour are boycotting Facebook because of hateful speech in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. So I've heard of flip-flopping. However, this is ridiculous. Starmer has flip-flopped on the issue of Black Lives Matter, and he doesn't. And this is a notable thing with Starmer. I don't think Starmer actually believes in the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't actually think he cares about it. However, he's supporting it for the simple reason he's supporting it to try and help his party, because he knows that Labour relies on voters from young people and ethnic minorities. So he thinks if I support these protests, then I'll get the support of these people. Now, Facebook have basically said about Facebook has basically said about Labour boycotting their site, they don't care, it's their loss. Mark Zuckerberg has basically said, I don't care, do what you like. So Starmer's, really moral kind of saying, yes, I am sticking with my principles and we're not going on Facebook. Well, actually, Facebook doesn't care. And it looks like the majority of Facebook users don't care either. For me, I'm glad Labour aren't on Facebook anymore. It means I don't have to see any more patronising posts from them. So, however, if you actually look at opinion polls, Starmer's not doing very bad recently. Well, actually, yes. If you look, since he has taken over as leader of the Labour Party, Labour have recovered in opinion polls. They're still behind the Conservatives, so don't. If you're a Labour supporter, don't jump for joy. However, Starmer has tightened the gap between the Conservatives and Labour. Now, is that due to Starmer's leadership, or is that due to the fact that the
Bit of
Conservatives
both.
have become unpopular due to the coronavirus? I would say it's more to do with the coronavirus than Starmer's charisma or lack
Well,
of,
I mean,
and his
you
leadership
could
of
argue
the
it's a
Labour
bit of
Party.
both, because when you look at comparison as to what was before.
Oh yeah, definitely. But Starmer did perform well during the first couple of Prime Minister's questions against Boris. He was very good at kind of saying what the government did wrong and basically arguing like a lawyer, which you'd expect because he is a former lawyer, so you'd expect him to argue like a lawyer. However, as the weeks go on and Boris starts getting his mojo back again and there's a bit more oomph to his performances, you can see Starmer's starting to struggle. I mean,
Yeah.
Boris nicknamed him Captain Hindsight in recent Prime Minister's questions, basically saying that Starmer says the government should have done this or they should have done this. And Boris has said, well, in hindsight, we could have done all these things. However, you can't think in hindsight. You have to do what you think's right at the time.
Yeah, I
So
saw
Starmer,
Boris humiliated him a couple of weeks ago in Prime Minister questions, if you recall.
yeah, he did. I remember. And so Starmer has really is as Boris starts getting more and more powerful again. Starmer looks like he's struggling. However, if you look at the polls, yes, Labour are doing better than they were under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership. That's not saying a lot because Jeremy Corbyn reached an all-time low at the start of this year in opinion polls.
Yeah.
Labour were very, very down. Even losing support that they had at the general election, they were like down into the into the 20s, I think, in terms of opinion poll ratings. So Starmer has recovered Labour's fortunes. However, in normal times when the coronavirus isn't happening, it'd be interesting to see whether Starmer and Labour can keep an increase. I mean, already recently, if you look at polls in the last 2 weeks, Labour have started to go down again. So it all depends, was Starmer really improving Labour's ratings, or was it just people weren't happy with the government, so went to the alternative? I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Matthew. I've done a lot of talking. You've just sat there.
To be honest, I can't really add anything more. No, you said it right about Starmer's nature and how, he came back thinking, there's going to be a strong search for Labour once again, but now it's starting to wear off, and his new charm, new guy charm, how he's he's very forensic in the House of Commons with his analysis of Boris Johnson. That's starting to wear thin now with all the media loving her up, saying, oh, this is the new forensic Labour leader, like his forensic takedown.
Yeah.
That's all, like the media was loving it all up, but now that's his lucky charms are starting to wear thin now.
Yeah, I think that's what I think that might have been. I forgot to mention that, but as you've said, the media really loved Starmer when he was elected leader. There was all this, and I'm not denying Starmer didn't do some good things. He said he was going to sort out the anti-Semitism, and he has taken steps to do that. So that's good, because anti-Semitism is wrong, and Labour should really deal with that problem that's been plaguing them for several years. However, I think as time goes on, Starmer just looks like a very uncharismatic, boring examiner rather than a leader who could make firm decisions and stick to them. His constant flip-flopping nature with the Black Lives Matter movement is really starting to annoy me, because one minute he's saying he fully supports it and the next he's saying that he doesn't associate with it and he thinks the protests are wrong. So it's like he can't really make up his mind. He's kind of just going by what the opinion polls tell him and says, oh, the opinion polls are going up. Now I'm doing something right. I'll say I support them. Oh no, they're going down. I better say I don't support them. He's running his leadership based on ratings and opinion polls, which is wrong. Leaders should sometimes expect to be unpopular. At some point in their leadership, they are going to be unpopular. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
I don't think Starmer's realised that yet. He's just trying to be popular all the time. And by the looks of things, failing miserably.
Yep. Yeah, I can't really add anything to that because, yeah, I think the same thing as well, yeah. It's not. I wouldn't say he's a complete catastrophe like Jeremy Corbyn became, but so far he's just just wearing thin.
Mm. Yeah, he's better than Ed Miliband.
Well,
He no he
yeah,
yeah
I
he's
preferred
better.
Ed Miliband because he
He's
was
better
funny.
than Jeremy Corbyn and Ed Miliband. I'll say he's better than Jeremy Corbyn and Ed Miliband, but
No, I'd want
I
Ed
don't
Miliband back.
think, I don't think he's a Labour leader which could win back
No.
northern seats,
Oh God, no,
which is
no.
what you need to win back if you're going to win. He just doesn't seem to have that. I mean, he's been going up there. Don't say he's wrong. He has been going up to the north and trying to kind of say, "Look, I'm a working man." I think he took his
Is
blazer
he?
off at one point, trying to say, "Look how great I am." But apart from that, he's just kind of. I think he's happier in London, where where a lot of the socialists.
where he's always lived and made his money.
Yeah, so I think he's happier in London than he is up north. He's just going up there because he knows he's gonna win. He's got to win them back if he's gonna be prime minister.
If I don't think
If
there's
well, oh, you never know. 2024 is a way away at the moment, so who knows what will happen in that time? I mean, Boris has had a tricky time recently, a little bit of a tricky time.
Yeah, but I really can't see. I really can't.
Well,
No.
neither can I at the moment, but we can't tempt fate. Who knows? You just gotta. I don't know. Just who knows? No one knows
I
yet.
suppose we
It's
are
just one of
years
those
away
things.
from, a general election. So a lot of
Well,
things
yeah,
can change in 4 years, I suppose.
Well, yeah, May 2024 is when the next general election is scheduled.
Yeah.
So that's a long way, and we got all the coronavirus recovery to look forward to first.
Yeah.
Because of course that's what's gonna affect our nation the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Recovery from coronavirus, which Boris has started doing already, announcing all plans, which I think
Boris
you know
is back
more
on
about than me. So I'll hand over to you on all those things.
Is that a segue?
Don't know.
Well, it's gonna have to be. Otherwise, we're gonna sit here.
You're in charge, not me. This is your podcast. I just visit.
No, it's communal. What's
Yeah,
yours is
okay.
mine. Communism. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I own nothing and you own everything. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
communism,
it's just
right.
I'm more equal than others. Anyway, so what we're going to discuss today? What's been happening the past week in England and rules changing, coronavirus, and stuff? Well, the pubs have reopened.
Yep.
Since last time, yeah.
Yep.
Pubs, restaurants. Have you been out to any yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't been out to any pubs or restaurants. I've seen them open.
I've been into KFC.
The ones where no,
I have.
But the ones where I live have not actually been that busy.
No.
I mean that I live in the countryside, so that's probably why. But they don't look that busy. One thing I have noticed is because I work in retail, especially in a seaside area. I've noticed you can really notice that the caravan parks are starting to open again.
Yeah.
Last Saturday when I was at work was really, you could tell there were holiday makers down in there. Yeah, and none of them were following any social distance guidelines or wearing masks or anything. At one point when I was down the aisle, and I can't tell you where I work, there was like 10, 12 customers down there. And it was just like, my God, this is hell.
You should have seen me. I was on the door for a little bit.
Yeah.
They was all bundled.
I hope it doesn't get out of control. This is the one thing I'm worried about.
Yeah.
The holiday makers getting out of control.
Which one thing I want to touch on is about what you say about shops is the requirement to wear masks is going to be coming.
Yeah, there's a bit of
Boris has said face masks should be worn in shops, and he said he's looking at ways at enforcing this as well now.
To be fair though, the government have slipped up about this mask thing. They could have done it better because Michael Gove
Yeah.
came on air days ago and said we're not making masks mandatory, and now Boris has come out and said we are. So that's a bit of a negative thing I can say about the government. I don't know if Gove was actually speaking the truth and then Boris decided to change his mind, or
No, I
Gove
think
just.
Gove was just more voicing his opinion, if I'm honest, not the government. That he said he
No, well,
thinks that it wouldn't be.
the problem is Gove is a member of the government. You
Yeah.
have to be very careful about saying things, especially at times like this.
Yeah.
I think it is right that people should have to wear masks in supermarkets. I mean, I would struggle to wear a mask because I have asthma. I can't breathe in those
I
things, especially when doing manual work.
don't know about the
So
workers, but I know like customers at least.
yeah, I would struggle to wear a mask purely because I have asthma. I've got no problem with what I look like or anything. It's just I've worn them a couple of times and I sometimes struggle to breathe in those things. So they're gonna have to think about people like that,
Yeah.
people who can't actually wear them because it
Well,
doesn't.
they've already got things like that in place, like on public transport. You seen like you don't
Yeah,
have to wear a face mask if for medical reasons.
I think they should have badges printed or something which says I am allowed to not. Well, I'm exempt from wearing a mask because
Yeah.
or something on medical grounds or something like that to kind of. I think that would stop a lot of challenges from members of the public, which we all know members of the public love getting involved in things which don't actually concern them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
Me
but
and you
let's be
witnessed.
real though. The amount of trouble that's going to cause for shop workers, because you know what people are going to be like. Even if it becomes mandatory, people are still going to you know claim it's against their human rights that they have to wear a mask and
Yeah.
just not give a shit.
Oh, trust
Still,
me. I was when we had a one-way system where I work, and once I tried to enforce it and this guy was walking oblivious to it. I said, it's a one-way system. He ignored me. I said, excuse me, it's a one-way system. Could you please follow it? He said, right, do you want to take this outside? And that's the level of respect that people
yeah.
had for retail workers and key workers more generally. I don't understand how we're going to make them wear masks. I mean, the only thing I can think of is you have someone on the door, and if they're not wearing a mask, you don't let them in the store. That's the
Well,
only way you're going to control.
This is slightly different though, because at the shop, the one way system was at the discretion of the store itself, whereas face mask that's going to come from the discretion from government. And Boris,
It's still going to be hard to enforce, though, I think.
I know, but like with on public transport, that's enshrined in law at the moment, and police can issue fixed penalty notice for not wearing a mask on public transport. They have the power to do that. And Boris, by the way, he's talking, it said it's possible that they could go down the same route for supermarkets as well.
Yeah, well,
So if we just leave it as as an advisory level, then people just are not going to give a shit. Whereas if they actually say you can get in trouble if you don't, then
I still think people won't follow it.
no.
I mean, some people haven't been following the social distancing measures from
No.
day one. I think I think it's gonna be tough to enforce it because, as you said, some people claim it's against their human rights or it's against, they don't deserve this and all together. A lot of people in this country are very selfish when it's come to this coronavirus
Yeah,
thing.
one way to
We've
look
seen
at
the
it.
good of our country, but we've also seen the really bad.
Yeah.
And it will be those people which let us down and won't follow it.
Well, one way you can look at it is that yes, it's within your rights to not wear a mask, but it's also within the rights of the shop to not let you in if you're not wearing a mask.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, you could and it's not just about protecting you; it's about protecting
Yeah.
others. That's why you wear a mask, because if you have something, it's protecting others from you,
Yeah.
and vice versa. So people shouldn't be as selfish as they have been, and not everyone. So if anyone's watching this, don't say I'm saying everyone's selfish. I'm not. I'm just talking about those handful of individuals which are spoiling it for everyone else. I mean, I've seen on Facebook and on social media massive block parties and like all night parties and police getting kicked and beaten up when they're trying to stop these things from taking place because they're not allowed at the moment.
Mm.
And it's those people which will really let this country down and cause a second wave to
Yeah.
occur. Because trust me, second wave will come in like late October, November. I predict a second wave. I would not. It would not
No.
surprise me in the least. I don't know about you. It wouldn't surprise me at this stage with the
No,
way
but
people are being.
the way I've seen tourists acting in Hunstanton is ridiculous.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, they
I
are.
went to the beach yesterday, like in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I avoided Hunstanton entirely. I went to Old Hunstanton because it was a little quieter. Not as many
Yeah.
tourists go to the far end of Old Hunstanton Beach, but just seeing the amount of people just walking through the green is just ridiculous.
Yeah, there is. It is getting ridiculous. I mean, we notice more than most because in the seaside area, and it's not that we're used to holiday makers. You know, we're used to it every year. You know, it's a common thing. However, at a time like this, you think people would be a bit more respectful, a bit more. Oh, well, you know, it's not just us. There are people who live here.
Yeah,
We shouldn't. But no, they still. I mean, I went on Heacham Beach and there was rubbish. There was rubbish everywhere. Some guy even had a barbecue on the
mm.
beach, which is illegal. You're not actually allowed to have a barbecue on a well, especially on Heacham Beach.
Yeah,
You're not allowed to have that. So it was the mentality that they come in, they don't care about local residents or respect any of their views. They
but
just
I
come
never
in,
did.
create a mess, and then go home. Yeah, but you've seen it even. You
But you would
thought maybe the
think,
coronavirus, all
yeah,
the restrictions would make them think a bit more,
yeah,
but it hasn't. They've not changed. Not one bit.
they're just walking, thinking like they own the place, and just it's just ridiculous.
But if an outbreak happens where we are, they'll all go back to, they'll all go back to the cities
Yeah,
and leave us with it here. That's the problem. We've been pretty good up here without having a lot of outbreaks because there's not a lot of us that live in the countryside, and I think in the countryside we've handled it a lot better than in the
yeah,
cities. However, if all those from the cities are coming down here for their holidays, then we're going to get hit just as much as they are, which is wrong. It's just selfish. I've
mm.
used that word a lot in this podcast, but
Yeah,
I do generally believe it's very selfish of them. I just wish they'd think of others.
yeah, yeah. It's good. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way things are going. Everyone just thinking they can
It
just
is at the
bundle in
moment.
and whatnot.
It is at the moment. I'll give it that. I will give it
Yeah,
that.
which is well, I think for the most part, in terms of like places reopening, it has been handled quite well. You've seen some pubs, not put social distancing things into place.
Mm.
For example, I went to the pub last Sunday. We went to the Coach and Horse in Dursingham. They had all the social distancing properly laid out, where like how you order your drinks, and I didn't really think much of it, but but like how they social distancing everything, you got to go up and got to fill a form in and everything. Though the pub around the corner, from what I've heard, wasn't doing that, and everyone just allowed everyone to bundle in.
I think that's the problem. Some businesses are only thinking about money, and they
Yeah,
think, well, we just need to save money. We need to make money. We've lost a lot. Let's just get all the people in. And I've seen a couple of shops like that. Lidl was pretty bad
yeah,
during it for not having many measures in place. There was, where we live, especially, Lidl were very well known for not having any measures in place. I think the majority of businesses are finally starting to take it
yeah.
seriously. Um, I'd be interested to see what happens when places like cinemas and theatres and things like that
Hmm.
open again. Swimming pools is the most
Well,
bizarre one.
they're
I
going to be
don't
allowed to
really
open in a couple of days.
yeah, I don't really understand how swimming pools would work
Yeah,
because if you get in water, the germs can spread through water and that. So I really don't understand how that works. Gyms, fair enough. You can social distance with at gyms and cinemas. You can probably do that as well,
well, yeah.
and at fitness. I
Cinemas are going to
just
have to
I
be
don't
running at
understand.
limited capacities. That's all.
Yeah, I don't understand the swimming pool thing.
Yeah,
That just don't get that. That doesn't seem to make any sense.
No. No, it all doesn't. It all doesn't really make sense. What else has changed since the last podcast? Well, barbers.
Yeah, yes, I've got my haircut. That was good,
It looks the
and
same.
my hairdresser really well.
Yeah.
So they were only allowing one client in this. They were only allowing one client in the building at a time,
Well, it depends
and it
how
was all
big the
done. It was all
places are.
very well. Can't fault them. It was done very well.
Yeah. What
Of course,
else?
I think the biggest thing about all of this is, of course, they're trying to get money made because
Yeah.
it's summer. We need to make some money. And Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, did deliver a mini budget. I think it was called a mini budget, laying out
People
uh,
were saying it's a mini. Well, labeling it as a mini budget.
laying out all that's going to happen. And he said that there are going to be job losses at the end of this, and
Yeah.
our economy is going to be damaged at the end of this. He weren't shying away from it. He was being honest. I mean, Labour ripped him to shreds for being honest because
Yeah.
they prefer people being dishonest. But I'm glad Sunak's in charge of the Treasury. I think he's handled it really
Oh
well.
yeah, I think he's done
He
quite a good job at that. Quite a good job,
he's
to be fair.
taken. He's being realistic. He's
Yeah.
not. He's not. And yes, increased levels of borrowing. Fair enough. We have had to increase the levels of borrowing. However, Boris has already said that he doesn't want austerity measures introduced again because we've had that for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. It all just depends if there's a second wave. If there's a second wave, the economy will struggle even more, and more measures will need to be put in place to try and maintain our economic growth. All just depends on the second wave.
Yeah.
I think if just got to wait and see. It's one of those things you just got to wait and see. You never know. A vaccine could be found next week, and then it's all over. But I don't think anyone knows with this
No.
thing at the moment. It's just no one knows.
What? Oh, also, I got. Did you see about what they said about furloughed? What they're doing about the furlough scheme, and how they said they would give. I don't quite know how. £1,000, like for every furloughed worker they bring back. I don't know if that's £1,000 to the business or £1,000 to the individual. Did you see about that?
I read something briefly. I would say that's £1,000 to the business rather than to the individual.
Yeah, as
The individual
as an incentive to keep jobs. They're
I
saying
don't know
for
because
every furloughed worker that you bring back and don't fold the job, there's £1,000 incentive for it.
Well, that's because companies like Boots have come out and said they're cutting loads of jobs because of the coronavirus. A lot of businesses are doing that. It's one of those complicated things, isn't it? It depends what type of job you have. I mean, me and you work in retail at the moment, so there'll always be jobs for people like us because people always need food and things like that. Much like fruit pickers and NHS workers and things like that, you'll always need those jobs. What will matter is the cinema workers, theatre workers, things like that, which are they're needed, but are they needed right now? I think that's the issue that's affecting everyone at the moment. The furlough scheme, I think the furlough scheme works. However, I think it could be run a little bit better. You've had companies which were struggling before coronavirus hit, closing down and then setting up as a new company and claiming government money. You have had businesses start doing that, which there's always, whenever you set up a system to help people, there's always people that try and
there'll always be someone trying to abuse it and cheat the system.
But I think that's just one thing the government needs to keep an eye on is businesses which are just going into liquidation and then setting up a new business and claiming government money. They just need to keep an eye on that because that won't help the economy one bit. That'll just make matters worse.
Another thing we should probably discuss at some point. This could be done either on this channel or your channel, Movie Rewind. Shameless plug. Is
What's that?
like you
I
said
haven't heard
about
that.
the effects, like theaters and cinemas, like staff and stuff, and also it could be good to discuss the effects the corona is going to have on the cinema industry as a whole, the film and cinema industry as a whole, because with all the cinemas shut, everyone's been really focusing on the streaming services and releasing digital releases and all that stuff. So that could be a good topic to discuss either on here in the politics side, financial side, or you know,
Well, we could
slowly
discuss
on
the
films.
we could discuss the financial side for starters.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah,
we're not
I,
allowed to talk about
I,
movies on here.
I get a lot of people watch streaming services and things like that. I'm not doing, but those people watch it already. There's still a great deal of people which prefer to see films in
Yeah,
cinemas. It's not about just a new film; it's the experience of a cinema. Especially if you go to one like we've gone to Cambridge
yeah,
or Wisbeach. It's not just the film, is it? It's the experience. I mean, when we
yeah.
saw Avengers Infinity, when we saw
Oh,
Avengers Endgame,
I completely agree. It's just
yeah.
whether
Well,
a
no,
lot of
I'm
other
just
people do.
I know. I'm just raising the
Yeah,
point. When we went to see Avengers Endgame, you wanted to see that on a big
yeah,
screen with like really sound system and things like. I think there will always be a place for cinemas. You know, there will always be films. I don't think
just at
major
what
films will just
capacity?
release on streaming services. I don't see major films just releasing on streaming services because they put so much money into these films. I think streaming, just having them on streaming services might cost them. I mean, how would you measure box office? You
Yeah,
wouldn't you? There wouldn't be a box office. You'd be measuring streams or
yeah,
whatever. I don't know. Of course, the film industry has struggled. TV shows have struggled. We're starting to see shows and films return to filming following strict social
oh
distancing
yeah.
guidelines.
There's even the major shift from traditional satellite TV, like Sky and all that stuff, streaming services. There has been a massive shift in that direction. For normal TV programs, less and less people are watching live TV broadcasts and stuff.
Oh yeah, especially to name an example, I'm just going to name an example. I watch Casualty on which is considered a prime time show on a Saturday night. That
Yeah,
used to rake in back in like the early 2000s, sometimes 15, 16 million viewers at some points. Now it racks in about 4 or 5 million viewers on a
yeah,
good night. That's not to say the show's not as popular as it was. It just shows that less people are sitting down and watching TV programs live. They look at streaming services or go on iPlayer or things like that. They don't really just watch
no,
things live because Saturday nights aren't what they used to be. When my mum
no,
and dad were young, Saturday nights were a big thing. The whole family would sit down and watch programs together. That doesn't happen anymore. So of course, the nature of how TV is changing. Coronavirus has affected that.
yeah,
More people, as you said, more people are watching streaming services, especially during this, because obviously a lot of programs on normal TV aren't being made, so they're just airing repeats. So you go and watch a streaming service. But I still think there will be a place for normal TV programs when they return. There'll still be a place for cinemas. Cinemas have been around for decades. I don't see them going anywhere.
no.
They'll bounce back from this. It might just take longer than people think.
Yeah, that's a recurring theme though of the whole Corona situation is how long or if things will bounce back. And
Things
a lot of
always
that
bounce
still remains to be seen, and we can't properly predict.
things always bounce back. I've heard people say social distancing will have to last forever. I don't think that's the case. There will be a vaccine found. This will not last forever. Yes, it might last longer than people are used to. Maybe a year, maybe longer than that. It's not going to be forever. You can't have social distancing measures in place for the rest of your life because I don't understand how that you wouldn't be able to meet new people, would you? Or
No,
like if you um if you wanted, or if you were on a dating site or something, for example, you couldn't actually start a relationship with someone because you'd have to abide by social distance. There's all these things which social distancing, of course, it can't be in place forever. It just needs to be in place until a vaccine is found. That's the main point. The world is just the world. We're doing what we usually do. We panic, and that's I just hope that panic doesn't lead to any regrettable decisions. Like electing Joe Biden as president. Those kind of regrettable decisions, which after the crisis is over, you think, "Damn, I shouldn't have made that decision." Just things like that. Just no bias here. We're impartial.
I think with that said, that's going to where we're going to conclude today's episode.
Well, you're
thanks, Tommy, again for being there
that's
again
okay.
and talking.
Yes, I've appeared in the majority of TPM podcasts.
You're meant to be
except I think one or two videos I haven't appeared in. I did a phone in on one. I know that.
Yeah,
I know that
so
much.
You've only been on. You've only never been on one, and that was like over a year ago.
On that one, I was following in the chat, in the live chat. I was that, so I have appeared in some shape or form.
Back when you said Saj is my man.
Yeah, I've appeared in all TPN videos up until now, unless Matthew fires me and says I'm not wanted anymore.
You're fired.
I'll appear.
You've been cancelled.
Okay then, bye.
That's another thing we should talk about. Cancel culture in another of Tommy's sociology corner.
Yes, we will talk about cancel culture. I've been talking about it on my own YouTube channel of Move Rewind. I'm happy to come and talk about it on here as well. Yes. We haven't really had a proper controversial topic since the gender debate a couple of months ago, which actually caused Matthew had to do a follow-up video to explain, to clarify some things. Yeah, I remember that. I will never forget that.
Right, with that said, we're going to get out of here. Thank you everyone for watching again, and we will see you, hopefully, next week.
Goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye. End.